Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Java. This is Monday, so I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. And this is for August 28th, 2023. So I've got some pretty interesting things that I wanted to bring up, but I'm going to bring them up towards the end. So if you're not into the markets, please feel free to skip forward about 5 minutes so I can get your comments on those. I don't have chapters set up yet. Maybe I'll get that sophisticated in a bit here. But until now, feel free to kind of scan forward, and I appreciate that. So let's get on to the markets. We've got our MMRI for the risk. We're still in high territory risk. Although after the whole Jackson Hole speech from Fed Powell kind of holding his ground, the markets were a little lower, but now they're looking towards green and kind of digesting it well. Today will be a very quiet day. There's not much on the calendar. So we'll go through some of these, although it probably will be a day of chop, watching the dollar index and the 10-year yield. And while it's quiet today, we are expecting quite a bit of information to start coming in tomorrow and through the rest of the week. So the first story in what affects this in the long term is oil and energy. So as we said, oil would start making a comeback, and I think that's going to continue this week because we've got some real supply headwinds, and that raises the price since there's less supply to go around. So we've got not only the refinery fire that is still ongoing, we've got supply issues because the Panama Canal is going to be backed up for some time. We've also got some other issues going on and kind of looking at the military-industrial complex, ramping up war a little bit, both in the Middle East and in the Far East. So I think all of those are inflationary for oil. For the BRICS stories, I think there were two things. One is that China is recovering better than people think with their economy, and I know that they've got a lot on the backside of it. However, they may be able to recover better because of their production. And so what they've got is a couple of their larger electric vehicle companies just merged. So that's very positive for this one. May not last long. However, I wanted to bring this up because everyone was expecting a currency from the summit last week, and I think that's a mistake. So the key there is that the world used to be required with the petrodollar to purchase goods with the dollar first. They would have to convert their currencies to a US dollar and then they could purchase their good. That gave the dollar its strength. Plus, it was backed up by the US military, but the strength was the purchasing power of the dollar and that everybody had to use it. India just bought oil with rupees in their own currency. So even if they have trade agreements to where they purchase from each other in their native currencies, it's still a negative for the dollar. So the bulk of trade is still done in US dollars, but we're about 46%, I believe it is, for the worldwide trade. It used to run closer to 63 to 65%. So it is trending down. It's going to take some time, but they are de-dollarizing. So the big story to me this week is really no story for today, and that's on the banks. Recently, we have heard nothing. We've heard crickets. So we know that they're tumbling. The banks are crumbling. They are having issues. I showed that notice that I received since I did. Several other people with other banks as well, namely Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, and Bank of America. So all of these are doing some type of either maintenance, account moving, or something else the week of Labor Day or right around that time period. So today technically is bank holiday for the UK, but I think soon we may have one in the US to where it's not a formal bank holiday, but rather this was used previously to preserve capital when people were doing bank runs. So I've got this up because they're saying these banks are solid and cheap, but here's why investors should be cautious. Well, the mega banks are going to survive. However, there's still more banks to fall, and I just want to urge you caution to make sure you have enough currency out physically in your hand that if they close, ATMs are empty, you still have what you need to go purchase your groceries, at least for a time. On to real estate. Evergrande, they came back onto the trading floor. And while this is regarding their stock dropping value, this wipes a large volume of cash off that they can use to kind of restructure. So, as I was just saying, China does have a tremendous amount of weakness, and this is part of it as well. In the grand scheme of things, that they could have a better recovery depending on a few other things. But we are still watching this will affect the real estate, still has not had the crash or at least the correction that we are kind of expecting it should have. For labor and retail, we've got basically a lot of the data that is coming in. We expect it to still be weak. Labor, people are beginning to lose their jobs as retail is declining, particularly discretionary income first, discretionary spending, and then people are losing jobs because there's nothing to pay because people are not spending money. That's the cycle we're hitting now. Okay, for supply and demand. So this is a slight bit of a joke that they're talking about egg smuggling, but the reality is that agricultural smuggling is becoming more prevalent, and it is kind of showing the state of things as food is becoming a little more difficult with the prices to get. And we are also seeing on the back of the yellow bankruptcy, US trucking firms in general are still seeing a major downturn, and they're bidding on the transit stations right now for that company. So that's a separate supply crush that we will be seeing, or at least inflationary in prices as they charge more. So here's where I wanted to get to the lava updates. So we have a former US intel officer predicting Kim Jong un most likely would use nuclear weapons if they feel that China has abandoned them. So recently, also, they are opening their borders so that the citizens can return home, citizens abroad. So it's the first time in 3 years North Korea has opened its borders. And also, he's much less stable on the nuclear forefront. They've been kind of testing their weapons, and he has much less grasp on the worldwide repercussions that it would have on dropping nuclear weapons on American soil. So, just something interesting to keep in mind. I wanted to ask a couple of other questions here, and this is related. A quote from Aldous Huxley: medical science has made such tremendous progress that there is hardly a healthy human left. So, a couple of questions here because we know that they're coming out with this new strain, things that we need to do. And between that and the new version of how you can pay with Whole Foods, pay with your palm. So these scanners don't scan your palm print. What they actually do is they scan through your hand, map your veins, because everybody's hand with the arteries and veins pattern is unique. They are tying that to your credit card payment system and identity. And being that it's a grocery store, they can likely link your health information. So Whole Foods is owned by Amazon, and they also have a large data storage facility, AWS, which everybody is beginning to use now. So, with that, I think that's enough said that I would like to hear your comments on any of this, if you would leave them below. I would also like to know your comments on what you think about bank holiday, particularly with Labor Day coming next week. If you think anything is going on with that, or if you've heard anything more with the banks, which are eerily silent. And question: what does America produce that the world needs? If America disappeared tomorrow off of the trading globally, what would the world need from America? Just a question. I'd like to hear the comments. I can't wait to hear from you soon. So, with that, I wish you all a green trading day, or just a wonderful day in general. And until I see you again, my friends, stay free.